Hello, my name's David Ainsworth, and this is my family's pub in the Yorkshire Dales. It's 500 years old with flagged floors, gas lighting, and a wonderful crook barn at the back. It's a proper Yorkshire pub, serving something I'm deeply passionate about. I really like beer. Not lager, not the stuff brewed in big factories, but good, proper local ale. And I've got a bit of an idea. That's my son Robert on the left, and Mark, who keeps our beers in pristine condition. What I think we need to do is have a beer festival. We could have it here in the Crook Barn at the back.
Good idea.
And what I think we want to go for is real Yorkshire beers, not beer from these big conglomerate factories and things like that. Proper local beers brewed with passion.
Right.
How many beers could we get in there? 10?
15.
20.
And the great British public can come in and vote for which is Yorkshire's perfect pint.
Great idea. Yeah.
You're going to run the festival.
Yeah.
And I've got a job for you as my son, Robert. And I'm going to have to go around all these breweries, selecting all these beers, which is going to involve a considerable amount of tasting, as you can imagine. So I need somebody to drive me. So that's your job.
Right.
So we're on then. We're on. Over the next 4 programmes, I'll be on a tasting tour of North, South, West and East Yorkshire, meeting the fascinating people who create this amazing drink. We'll see the traditions that are still alive and well. I'll be on a mission to convert people from lagers and keg beers to the complex taste of proper ale. There's a lot more work goes into producing that than lager.
Maybe now
Do you like it?
Yeah, that's very nice.
And basically drinking as much ale as possible. Cheers. All in the name of research, of course, to find Yorkshire's perfect pint. Oh, and this is my other job. I'm the chairman of the annual game fair at Broughton Hall near Skipton. It raises money for the 2 local fell and cave rescue teams.
Ah, Mr. Frisbee's got you now. Bye-bye.
I am a man of many talents.
We now have the main event of the day. This is the famous Birdman Challenge.
There's a prize of £1,000 for getting across the 40-foot wide river. Dozens have tried over the last 15 years, but all have failed. There's a barrel of beer each year for whoever gets the furthest. I generally come last. But this year, I've got a secret weapon. Oh dear, didn't quite make it. Beaten by a chicken on that bike. Oh right, I need a beer.
Mr. John Peet have won the trout weight competition.
Oh, that's good. Now, time for a quick lesson on how to make a real ale. Robert, beer's actually quite simple to make. There are only 4 ingredients, but the great skill is putting it together. But if we look at it really simply, the first thing that they use is malted barley, which means it's been roasted at the malting houses. And that is put into a vessel, it's mixed with hot water as it goes in, and it's left to soak. Well, the next part of the process is they take the water that's been soaking the barley and they put it into a vessel, something like this, except on a much larger scale, and it's boiled. And it's at this point that the hops are added.
So do they give it its smell?
Well, yes they do, but also, probably more importantly, the bitterness. And there are lots of different sort of hops to get different flavours. So from there, it's transferred into a fermentation vessel, and we'll pretend this is one here. And it's here that the yeast is added. And we've got a bit of sort of standard yeast here, but they have very special yeast. And it will start to produce alcohol, and it'll be in there for about 3 days. And then at the end of that time, you've pretty well got beer. Oh. You mean you don't like my beer?
It's not the best one I've tasted.
This is the Brigadier, a 1933 Bentley. The top speed was about 120 when it was built, and it still can, but don't tell anybody. The first brewery we're going to see is a true microbrewery. It's only 2 months old, and it's only got 1 employee. Dog Horse Brewery is run by Richard Eaton-Jones. he's been involved with breweries all over the country, but he's returned to Yorkshire to set up his own venture. Right, give it a polish, would you, Robert? Richard, what a great position.
Yeah, this is the view from my office every day.
Richard's chosen the village of Hetton, not for the views, but a free supply of his main ingredient.
The water that we use at the brewery comes from limestone. It comes from 30 metres underneath the brewery, and it creates this fantastic, clean taste, which is typical of a Yorkshire ale.
When farms had dozens of labourers hundreds of years ago, the staple drink to quench their thirst would have been weak ale, probably brewed by the farmer's wife in a kitchen, and served in the fields around this old barn. I think it's great the fact that it was an old barn, rather than a modern building.
Our brewery trips are actually very short because there's not really a long way to go around.
Yeah. Richard's starting a brew of best bitter. I can give you a hand with this, can't I? Made just using those 4 ingredients of Dale's water, hops, yeast, and a secret blend of malted barley.
We use predominantly the pale malt. It smells very much like biscuit.
It does.
Basically, this is black malt, which is a roasted barley.
Yeah.
And this will provide the colour. So if you want to make a very dark beer, you use a little bit more of this.
Yeah.
Lighter beers, we don't use any at all.
I actually feel as though I'm doing something. And the reason you blend them is just to get your particular taste that you're wanting to create.
That's right.
Beautiful. The first process is just a bigger version of me putting the malted barley into the coffee pot. I can already feel the passion this guy has for a perfect pint.
I guess I started off home brewing, then after school and onto university, I then decided to do it professionally. You just can't beat seeing people enjoy something that you've made yourself.
I like it because it's a rural brewery and I like the scale of it. Everything is done by human hand. It's a real handcraft beer that is produced here in comparison to these enormous breweries that you get in town centres, which are quite honestly just factories and computer controlled. And this is the real thing. In every brewery there's a lot of water sloshing about. There's no main sewerage here and it would cost a fortune to tanker it away. But there's a novel solution outside. Oh, there's a big hole here. It actually looks attractive, doesn't it? I mean, have you ever seen a sewage works look attractive before? This does.
When you walk through the reed bed, you'll often hear frogs jumping back into the water.
Yeah. And it gets cleaner as it gets to that end, presumably, doesn't it?
It does. It starts at this end, and by the time it gets to the other end where the bulrushes are, the water is completely clean.
I thought we'd go back in the brewery now, and there must be a chance for a drink, surely, Richard? Right. A perk of hunting out good beers for the festival is it's vital to test and taste as many drinks as possible. All in the name of research, of course.
I've just brewed a brand new beer, which is a really light beer, which is called Hetton Pale Ale.
Right.
And we've not tried it yet. In the summer, people, I think, really enjoy a light coloured bitter. So what I've done is I've used the pale malt and a special blend of 3 hops that have gone into this, which gives it a really floral aroma.
Am I going to be the very first human being in the world?
You are the first person to taste that beer.
Well, I think that is very nice.
Great, I'm really glad you've enjoyed that.
I really do.
One of the great things about Yorkshire beer is that creamy white head that sticks to the glass as you drink it. The head itself is made up of some of the carbohydrates that come from the malt, but also the hops play a really big part in the way that the head sticks to the glass. But there are a lot of things that will actually make the head collapse as well. So if you've had a packet of peanuts in the pub and you then have a pint of beer, you'll soon find that the head disappears. It's because of the grease on the peanuts. And I'm afraid lipstick as well is another killer for the heads of beer.
That's good, it does look nice, that, and people do appreciate it. Why Southerners don't, I can't imagine, but they're Southerners, aren't they?
I'm not going to comment.
Job done. Beer number 1 for the festival. Hey, Richard, at this point I think we ought to be talking about a bit of discount. What do you think? Back at Festival HQ, our first cask enters the cellar. We can't drink it yet, it's full of sediment, so it needs to settle for 24 hours. And it's really important as to how the beer is kept in the cellar before it gets to the customer. The cask then needs to breathe for a few days. The beer's still very much alive as the yeast goes through its second fermentation. Oh, Mark. The final taste is down to the skill of the people who care for their cellar, closet their beer, and most important for me, say exactly when it is ready to drink. Right, 4 days later and it's time to connect to the pump. You've got to remember there's a lot of sediment in the bottom of there. It's got to be kept absolutely still. I bet we're going to try it. We're like 3 naughty schoolboys. Right, well here we go. One thing we were talking about at the brewery was the head and how it should follow all the way down the glass.
What I like to call it is a smiley effect. You can actually see the rings where how much the people have drunk, it's sticking to the side of the glass.
It is.
Which proves it's been conditioned for long enough, and it'll keep the head all the way down to the bottom of the glass. It'll never ever go flat.
Southerners apparently don't even like a head on it, do they? They like a flat beer.
They like to have the beers pulled flat because it's easy to drink, they get more to the pint.
Southerners, eh? Southerners. In a moment, I get down to business at a family firm that turns barley into brewer's malt.
You'll be ready for a pint after a bit of that.
And we go to Sheffield, where our search for Yorkshire's perfect pint continues on horse and dray.